Hey, Jason Fladlien here. I got an interesting story to share with you today to set up a very important point that I think will be vital in your business marketing and sales career. And many, many years ago, this was about 2009, if memory serves me correctly, there was this gentleman, his name was Kieran. And Kieran sat on one of my webinars where I was selling a product at the time that was $499. And he wanted to buy this product, but he was torn. So he sent an email out. My assistant, she flipped it over to me, and I just picked up the phone and I called him because it was a really interesting email. And the summary of that email was, hey, dude, I want to buy your course, but if I do, it'll be the last money I have to my name. So I don't know if I should buy your course or not. Can you help me out? So I called him up. I said, Kieran, let's break it down. I'm going to tell you something, and I want you to listen to what I say. It's that important. He says, okay. I said, here's the deal. If you invest in this course and then you don't follow it exactly as I lay it out until you know better, then you might as well take your $499 you have left right now and burn it or flush it down the toilet. It'll be the worst use, the biggest waste of money that you could ever have. I said, however, if you take this $499 and you apply with earnest and sincerity the model as it is, until you know better, until your experience leads you elsewhere, until you gain insight that exceeds the limitations of my instruction. If you do it and you attack it like that, I say, I can't think of a better way to spend the last money that you have to your name. How does that land with you? And Kieran says, you know what? That makes sense. I'm in. And he signs up. That's big stuff, ain't it? And, you know, opens up a whole bunch of questions. Jason, how did you know to say that then? Boy, that was confident. What happens if it went wrong? Blah, blah, blah. You know, I didn't think about any of this stuff at the time. I just got in tune to what I felt the needs were that Kieran was expressing, and I connected with him at a deeper level. So none of that internal chatter was going on in my mind. I channeled it. I saw what happened. And what did happen? Well, Kieran showed up in a way that very few, if any, of my customers ever show up. And he became very successful. In fact, he was one of my first biggest success stories ever because he went out in his industry and he started setting records. He started to become a big name, started crushing it. And what's really interesting is everybody loved the dude. They just were like, his attitude is so infectious. He's just a ray of sunshine and hope. And so it was with tragedy I found out one day that Kieran, he was snowboarding or doing some sort of skiing activity in Canada, I believe it was, and he fell and he died and he passed away tragically, too young, younger than I was at the time. And I thought, wow, that's too bad. Life is so short for some of us and so unpredictable. And it always bounces in the back of my head when I think of people like Kieran and think of Chaz, who I'm going to talk to you about here in a second. Is I have this belief, and the belief goes like this: any minute that you don't sell something to the right person is a minute that you allow their suffering to continue. And so when Kieran reached out to me, I felt like, man, this guy's got it. He's got the right attitude. He's got the right disposition. I can just feel it, but he's suffering. And maybe I can help him with that. And maybe there's some impact there for him. And so I showed up in the way that I could. And I don't know how his life would have played out otherwise, but I do know, however short his life was, and I've met some wonderful people who tragically their lives have been cut short throughout the years. I don't necessarily measure it in time past. I measure it in impact and vitality. And Kieran had it just as much as anybody. And for me to say I played just a tiny small role in that, based on the attitude of, hey man, if I don't sell something to somebody who needs it right now, every minute that I miss that person is a minute I allow their suffering to continue. Like, I think, man, I couldn't have the contribution I had. And then as a byproduct, the contribution they have to play a role somewhat, or maybe a large one in that for them, for that person. What about Chaz? So Chaz was this wonderful gentleman that I got to know, loved the guy, and he wanted to buy one of our products in 2013, and then he decided he wasn't going to buy it. He got scared. He backed out. And that was fine. It wasn't fine. It's still not fine. It still pisses me off that he said no. But whatever, okay? Because 6 months later, the product comes back to market and we offer it to Chaz again. Not mass marketing communication. We know dude personally. We know the product's perfect for him. We're like, Chaz, it's time for you to sign up, right? And he still says no. And then we circle back with him again 6 months later, and this is the third time. And we're like, Chaz, this doesn't make sense, dude. You got to get involved with this. We know for a fact it's going to be good for you. Sign up. So finally, even with reluctance still in his heart, he gave us the benefit of the doubt and he signed up. And Chaz went on to do amazing things. Chaz was selling a product and he became one of the top sellers in all of Amazon and the whole entire country on this product that he sourced and that he fulfilled. And he was just crushing it. And he had these beautiful twin boys, and he was able to take them out and travel with them and show them the world. And unfortunately, he had some physical health issues. And so he returned back to where he came too early, in my opinion. He had, 50 some years old, I believe he was, when he had passed, somewhere around there, gone. And I think, wow, with the way that his health might have been, he probably would have gone just as soon, if not sooner, but he wouldn't have been able to have the experiences that he had if we didn't have some sort of interaction with him of insistence. But dude, you got to get this, man. And even though he kept telling us no, we didn't give up on him. And that comes from that bedrock foundational belief that any minute you don't sell something to the right person is a minute you can continue to prolong their suffering. And that ain't good enough for me. I wish somebody 10 years prior to me taking EMDR therapy would have sat down with me and said, Jason, you need to go do this. I wish somebody would have sold me on that concept. Like I sold Chaz, or like I sold Kieran, because I suffered for a decade with unresolved trauma that could have been solved had I known about and been sold on the concept of it. Who's been suffering for a decade who you could help immediately if you could reach that person, and if with sincerity and an ethical, safe way, and if you led with value, you could continually have them understand more and more and more. Because he was like, Chaz was still a friend of ours, even though he kept saying no. We weren't doing things to alienate him or make him feel exploited or harmed. He knew no matter what, we would care for him and we would accept him, who he was. But he also understood how much we cared for him, that we kept being insistent on something in a positive, safe way that could help him. So 10 years ago, there's strangers walking this earth right now who, the moment you cross them with the right concepts, will immediately electrify their lives, and they will pay you for it. There's many of them. There's 8 billion people on this planet. How many of them would fit that criteria for you? And by the way, if you say, Jason, I don't have those capabilities yet, well, let me give you an incentive to acquire them. Because now you know what's really at stake. Wouldn't that help you be more motivated to show up and learn the skills that you want to learn right now that you're only doing with 50% of your heart when you could do 100%? Knowing that there are these people out there that need you and they're waiting for you. And so you got to have the capabilities first, and then you got to show up with them second. The first capability I would urge you, the meta capability, is the compassion you must have. Because the people that are suffering, the suffering inside of them is so great, it's hard for them to hear anything else, including you. So even if you identify these people, and even if you have the capabilities to serve them with specific solutions, they are unlikely to be responsive to you the first time you reach out to them. Because the suffering is so loud. It's 99%, and they can only hear 1% of something else. But if that 1% keeps pushing through, maybe it becomes 2, maybe it becomes 5, maybe it becomes 10. So we treat it with compassion. We treat it with care. We put it out there for them. We understand it. We don't have to buy into it. We don't have to let it affect us. And you can't let it affect you personally. You can't take on like an empath, and I'm an empath, so I had to work extra hard on this, take on their suffering on their behalf. It doesn't work that way. But you have to understand it intimately, and you have to care and be compassionate about it. And then you have to go to great lengths to do that. Now, here's what's wonderful about this from a commerce perspective. If you can do this with one person, it becomes a lot easier to do it with 10 people. And once you do it with 10 people, it's even easier to do it with 100 or 1,000. 100,000 customers in over 132 countries last time I checked. And that still blows my mind as a small town Muscatine, Iowa boy. It's never ending, the type of impact and the type of profit that's available to you in an ethical way. If you look at the positivity through the negative light of every minute I'm waiting on it, every minute I'm not out there trying to find this person to help is a minute that I may be actively even contributed to their suffering. That's the way I take it. Because I could help them and I'm choosing not to. They're drowning over there and I don't want my shirt to get wet. I'm going to let my shirt get wet. I'm going to save them. And then maybe I can help them save somebody else too. What are your thoughts on that? Let me know. I'll see you in the next video.